Hi everyone! Printing guns has been an incredibly fun hobby, and over the past few years it's given me endless hours of entertainment. Printed guns have been around for over 8 years now, so there's tons of really unique and interesting designs out there to try. One of my favorite things about printing is trying a new design for the first time. I never know what to expect, and there's often a lot of surprises. I'd like to start a new series in this spirit where I give my thoughts on some of the guns that I've printed, along with some lessons learned from the build process. So essentially, this is a printed gun review series. I have a lot of guns printed already, so this should supplement my other videos and hopefully increase my upload frequency a bit, since I've already got the hard part done. I've already sort of done this with the FGC9, so I'll skip it for now, but it might be fun to revisit it in the future. My plan is to cover guns that are primarily printed, so no parts kit builds for now. Metal parts are allowed, of course, but they should be doable for a hobbyist without a mill or lathe. So to kick this series off, I wanted to start with the Songbird, because it's one of my favorite printed guns, maybe the favorite. I absolutely adore this thing. I wouldn't really call the Songbird underappreciated, but it's definitely underprinted. My goal with this video is to convince you of its awesomeness and that you should print one. The Songbird was released in June of 2015 by a designer named James R. Patrick through FOSCAD. To my knowledge, it's the 5th primarily printed gun released, so it's quite an early design. It's a single-shot pistol chambered in .22 long rifle. The Songbird is probably best described as a break action. It has a removable barrel with a curved front that pivots against the front of the frame. The breech face of the Songbird is completely printed, which scares some people, but it's held up incredibly well for me. Rimfire rounds are quite gentle on breech faces because there's no primer attempting to blow out. I have at least 300 rounds through my Songbird, and aside from being covered in carbon, the breech face has almost no wear. The fire control group for the Songbird is really interesting. It uses rubber bands, which bothers some people, but I find it extremely cool. I really love the convenience of not having to find springs at a hardware store. I actually loved it so much that I ended up using rubber bands in my own fire control group design. Much like the Liberator, the Songbird uses a roofing nail as its firing pin. Another interesting thing about the fire control group is that the hammer is really long. It's about 2 inches in radius, and actually extends into the grip. Setting off rimfire cartridges can be really difficult, and this extra hammer length really increases reliability. The Songbird was intended to use either a completely printed barrel or a printed barrel with the steel chamber liner. The Songbird should always be printed with the barrel oriented like this, and the frame oriented like this. This way, the layers of the frame support the layers of the barrel, which increases strength a lot. Most of the printed barrel builds that I have seen use nylon filament, which further increases strength. While printed barrels are really inherently sketchy, the Songbird is probably the closest they've ever come to being safe thanks to these design features. There is a design in beta at the catalog that will soon usurp the Songbird as the king of printed barrels, but for now it reigns supreme. The other barrel method of using a chamber liner made from steel tubing is also really ingenious. It has most of the strength that a smoothbore barrel made from the same tubing would have, but because the printed portion technically has rifling, there's no NFA issues. I've used this method to test out .22 designs on the cheap before, because steel tubing is a lot less expensive than real barrel liners. While these two barrel options are extremely interesting, I would strongly recommend using a real barrel liner should you decide to build one. This is what I did for mine. Another tip is that while the README and the files say to print in ABS, I and a few others have had really good experiences with ESUN PLA+. So if you don't have an enclosure, the Songbird is still within your reach. Another thing that I should mention is that the stock trigger pull is absurdly heavy, but this can be fixed by filing down the sear a bit. So to summarize everything I like about the Songbird, it's safe, reliable, inexpensive, and really easy to build. The Songbird is an extremely robust design that has a years-long track record of safety. It also doesn't have any of the finickiness that a lot of other printed guns do. In the immortal words of Todd Howard, it just works. Its simple design also makes it extremely easy to build and very inexpensive. Building one for $35 is totally achievable. At that price, there's practically no excuse not to print one. The fun of blasting cans in your backyard with the gun you made yourself is just a few days of printing away.